A few announcements. Welcome everyone. My name is Amber Marlowe. I'm the Dean of Continuing Education at Courte Ojibwe College, and welcome to the 7 Generations Intertribal Leadership Summit. The summit this year does look a little different as we are all virtual, but in conjunction with the University of Wisconsin system and the College of Menominee Nation, we're bringing this lecture series as a series of days throughout the month of October. And so we're really fortunate that you're joining us today, and we hope that you'll be able to join us for some future sessions. So keep in mind that the 4 focus areas for the summit include education, workforce development, health and safety, and the environment. So just to give you a little bit of rundown of what today will look like, we'll have just some introduction type announcements, and then we'll have our presenter. And then at the very end, the last 15 minutes or so, we'll do some questions. Feel free throughout the presentation to put questions in the chat box, and we will go through them when the question and answer session comes about. And then at the very end, I will put a link to a Google form in the chat box, and we'd really appreciate you filling that out and providing us with some feedback for this session. So with that, I would like to introduce Sue Menzel. Sue is the Sustainable Agricultural Research Station Manager for Courte Ojibwe College. She's also an alum of the college and has been with the Extension Department in her role probably for, I'll let Sue answer that, but it's probably 8 to 10 years now. So again, doing some great work at the farm, and I'll let her take it away.
Hello, everybody. Glad to see some familiar faces or names. And I hope I don't bore you too much. You know, when you're under time restraint, it's like, oh, what do you say and what do you not? But I hope I'll be able to bring some interesting information and really spark an interest and a love of the idea of sustainable food. Food sovereignty, sustainable food too. But I'd like to just kind of do an introduction to myself. Oh, sorry, somebody's car horn just went off outside. Okay, so anyways, let me put on my presentation. I will jump in and out of the PowerPoint because I know you'll be bored just looking at PowerPoints, because I do have some things to show you here also. So let me go to the, okay, here we go. Ooh, I'm getting good at this. Okay. All right. The topic that I'm presenting today has a lot to do with what I've been doing here, at least for the last 7 years. I was asked to do this presentation basically because of what we're trying to accomplish here at LCO. And like Amber said, I've been here almost 10 years. And in the last several years, our focus is not only on sustainable agriculture, but on research that we're always continually doing here at the farm. Not only growing vegetables for the community, which is important, but learning about incorporating practices related to growing, foraging, and bartering in the traditions and with the skills and knowledge passed down from the ancestors, but also passed among peoples from all different tribes and nations collectively and individually, in striving to make our people truly sovereign. My background has nothing to do with agriculture, except genetically, except for my mom who was moved from the farm. There's countless generations of farmers in my family, and even though I grew up in the city and was a paramedic for going on 20 years, somehow those genes in the blood just kind of hit my brain, and fell in love with that thing that my ancestors have been involved with. But anyways, in the next 45 odd minutes or so, I hope not only to share some of that knowledge we gained here at the farm with you, regarding working towards food sovereignty, but also that we can continue the dialogue and the bartering related to the topics of this presentation. Like Amber said, at the end, we'll do some question and answer, and maybe what I'd like to do, because I know most of you, but I'd like to continue the dialogue and a discussion of not only what we're doing, but what you're doing, because I've learned so much from visiting different tribes, different farms, and seeing the exciting work that they're doing. So just a quick intro to the farm. We're part of the, like Amber says, the extension department of the LCO College. And we're known as the Sustainable Agricultural Research Station, but most of us know us as the college farm. Extension is more or less responsible for community education related to a wide range of topics, from Ojibwe traditional arts to instructor-led crafts and programs like soap making and field trips to interesting areas and sewing. But we also do a lot of, here at the farm, do instructing and provide hands-on learning experiences such as straw bale gardening, seed saving, what else? Growing tomatoes, wild plants good for food and medicine, canning, and a lot more. We don't just rely on me or one or two people, but we reach out to the community and invite members to present some workshops and demonstrations in their fields of interest. And except for a rare occasion, all of our programs are at no cost to the participants, and most of them are considered make and take. So if you're learning how to can vegetables, or jellies or jams here at the farm, everybody gets to take some home. But unfortunately, with the COVID thing, a lot of it has been virtual. We still have the classes, but you have to make it yourself, unfortunately. But anyways, we try to provide as many workshops as are interesting to folks. We also have community gardens here available at no charge, and we supply all the seeds and the plants. We provide tools, water, and the support to them as well. When possible, we have seeds and plants available for the general public for the asking, or we offer them during the early days in the spring and summer at the farmers market to give away. We have a lot of groups of youth that take advantage of the farm and the programs, and we have a good working relationship with schools. Whether it's, I don't know, Boys and Girls Club, LCO Middle School, high school science classes, and everybody in between. However, since March, we've cut that back because of the pandemic, and we have been doing almost everything virtually and on a very limited, in a very limited way also. And now, well, we also reach other schools and organizations who have come to the farm for tours, and usually end up counting worms in our soil research plots, or digging up potatoes for our potato research plot and eating them as part of the research. So not only do they walk around and see what we have, we usually get their hands dirty with some of the soil or one of the projects we're doing out here. You learn best by hands-on and doing it yourself, and kids love it, but also adults. They come in groups also, and they come at first to find out what the farm is doing, and then they always want to come back to do specific things like work in the gardens or weeding. Oh, I wish more would come for weeding. Anyways, the farm partners with, of course, our extension department, but also UW Extension, for our youth in agriculture, our youth leadership and leadership, family fun days, sustainability and Earth Day events. We sponsor speakers and teachers on any number of topics. And we also do a lot of research here. As mentioned above, we're doing soil research, potato and seed to table research, and the list keeps growing, whether we do it formally or non. We engage students to participate in these research projects, and if they're interested, and hope that they would be interested in sustainable agriculture and the natural resources. But what we're trying to, currently trying to accomplish will be presented in this PowerPoint presentation on food sovereignty, because food sovereignty has really sparked not only our farm crew and extension department in our college with new enthusiasm and interest, but the community. And also tribes and communities also are paying attention to what we're doing as we are them, and more and more people are becoming involved. And I'll bring up some examples of our partnerships and learning opportunities with other tribal communities and how they have infused us with their excitement and practices. And I think that's a form of barter, you know? So one last thing about our farm. We grow lots of vegetables. These are organically grown and non-genetically modified. They are available to our community through farmers market, on-site sales, giveaways, feasts in the community, meals at different organizations, and through classes here at the farm. Remember, make and take. So this year, about 2,300 pounds were grown, and we're almost through distributing them all. And we are now creating value-added products, which hopefully will be available in the near future. And for those that do not know value-added products, you take fresh blueberries and fresh choke cherries, and they become blue choke cherry jam. Just a technical question. Can you see that, Amber? Okay. Then I won't have to keep flipping it out. Again, I'll cover a lot more in the next few minutes, but for now, thank you for tuning in, and let's get started with food sovereignty. Okay. Trying to advance this. Oh, here we go. What is food sovereignty? When we used to think about sovereignty, and you think about a king and a queen, and they're sitting on their thrones with total obedience to anything they order. But in actuality, sovereignty is very democratic. Let me read this declaration by Nyalini from the first Global Forum on Food Sovereignty in Mali. And it says, food sovereignty is the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and the right to define their own food and agricultural systems. It puts the aspirations of and needs of those who produce, distribute, and consume food at the heart of food systems and policies, rather than the demands of markets and corporations. I look at it as it's actually, sovereignty is very democratic. As you see, it's the right of the peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecological and sound and sustainable methods. And then it is their right to define their own food and agricultural systems. And it is putting the aspiration and needs of those who produce, distribute, and consume food at the heart of the food system and policies, rather than the demand of markets and corporations. So I don't see where does the image of the two dictators ruling over people. In the case of food systems, are they not the markets and corporations who are trying to rule over and demand the people's over their needs and wants? A whole discussion can be focused on just corporate and market control over what is grown, what is processed, what is sold, and what is eaten. We will be highlighting more about, we'll be highlighting corn, beans, and squash in this presentation. But for now, I just want to, for now, I lost my page. Oops, sorry. For now, we're looking at, I just want to ask a question about how many varieties of corn are in the world, for instance. I looked this up, and it's about 12,000 varieties of corn. How many varieties are on the US market today? Five. 3 for livestock and 2 for humans. It is estimated that in the Western Hemisphere, from the tip of Cape Horn in South America to the Arctic Circle, it is estimated there are at least 6,000 varieties. So 5 out of 6,000, 5 out of 12,000. And beans, can you name beans usually found at the store? Black, red, kidney, bushes, baked beans. But have you heard of calico, Hidatsa shield beans, Turtle Island or Trail of Tear black beans, Potawatomi striped, Zuni gold? And I could go on about squash, potatoes, berries, nuts, etc. It's the corporations and markets that dictate what's on the shelves. Is it time for the needs and aspirations of people to dictate what they can and want to eat? Food sovereignty is when a group, a tribe, a nation, or a neighborhood decides what they want to eat, grow, and plant. I think of the time when I was designed and I was building a round log house cabin, and how much ridicule I got for thinking about building a round one from the bulldozer guy. Round? What's wrong with square? And it's because I wanted round. So I began building it myself, tired of all the negatives. I want to grow corn in a circular formation, I said. Can you help? And the person said, the agricultural agency person said, can't help you if you want it round. Well, we did it circular. However, as gardens and crops increased, we planted more in rows. However, we also have the circular plantings to demonstrate traditional gardening. But I'm moving too far ahead. We should begin making the decisions of what and how to plant based on our needs and aspirations. The aspirations can simply be stated as that related to our traditions, histories, and cultural stories and wisdom. And there is, of course, the need to pass these on person to persons or to the younger people who will continue on our mission. So these are what we're going to focus on: gardening, foraging, and barter. And I love that picture. There's a larger picture at the American Indian Museum in Washington. When you look in the cafe, they have this picture. This is called waffle gardening, that they do mostly in the Southwest. Do we all have to do waffle gardening? Heck no. But they have, through the centuries, through the millennia, developed waffle gardens. And that's their method of gardening in pretty arid areas. They make those ridges like the waffle, and then they plant in the middle. It gathers water there, but it also protects the seeds and the plants from wind and damages from too high a wind. But they also, as you can see, there's sticks and stuff that are put up for rabbits and all kinds of stuff. And it works well for them. It might not work here, but that's part of your traditions, part of what works for where you're at. Foraging is a great picture because the young man is just like all of us, 1 for the pot and 2 or 3 for me. But foraging is a time-honored and a forever way of harvesting food. And then bartering. It isn't item for item. It is, could be bartering is, if you show me how to grow this corn, I'll give you some corn in return. Or, we have different ways of bartering, and we'll go into that. And it could be a mobile farmer's market trailer, for instance. But anyways, we'll talk more about that when we get to bartering. And let's see, the next one. This is from a gentleman down in Lac du Flambeau, designed a chart on the seasonal Ojibwe food cycle. And what I love about it is gardening and harvesting and foraging and fishing and hunting, all interspersed throughout the year. There isn't just a time for planting. You could see the planting. Let's see if I can see some, pick one out here. Oh, there you go. In the summer or in the spring is planting season, spring. Planting season is right in here. Okay. And during the planting, you're also fishing. You're gathering wild onions and ginger, for instance, spring medicines, spearing. So planting season, you got a lot of things going on at once. In the summer, you're going after the wild potatoes and choke cherries and blackberries and throughout, and hunting, of course, but also you can or not tend to your gardens. Traditionally, some tribes would plant and then they'd go off for a period of time and do other things, hunting, gathering, and then they would come back when the plants were, or the produce was ready. For instance, the squash. And I just had a discussion with somebody that evolution-wise is the reason that squash is indigenous squash is orange, is because that's what they would do. They would plant among brush and stuff, and they would need to find it after they after they grew it, because if it was green, it'd be like us out in the tall grass stepping on pieces of squash and stuff. I mean, we were just kind of talking about how things genetically change or are selective bred to meet the needs of people and their lifestyles. So anyways, I love this chart, and I think Iska Coney, the artist of it, because I use it quite a bit, because it just gives a real nice snapshot of a traditional year. And again, they're all interspersed, and talks about gathering as well as getting ready for another season. And then in the course of the winter, it's not on here, but there's a lot of stories shared about the gardening and the foraging and that, and the plants. So moving on, trying not to okay. So you almost can't talk about foods, the resurgence of food sovereignty and starting to grow plants that were traditionally grown without talking about historical trauma. Because one of the things is a challenge I've found here at the farm is, especially talking to young people, oh, we're hunter-gatherers, we don't do planting, we don't do agriculture, we don't farm. But indeed, all tribes had those that were gifted farmers. It might not be in straight rows and a certain kind of crop, but there were ways of agriculture. And there were a couple major contributing factors to the separation of the indigenous peoples from their ability to grow or wanting to grow, as well as being separated mentally and spiritually from the land. The first picture is the famous picture of the Trail of Tears. Relocation officially started in 1830, but it actually started as soon as the Europeans arrived, because it was always pushing the tribes out of their lands. But the 1830 Removal Act was the first official act, and it separated them from their crops and their land. I want to show you something here in a second. The other was the Dawes Act, which was the relocation, or Dawes Act. That was in 1887. That really displaced a lot of people from their land also. And a lot of these, once they were removed from the land, they were not, what's the term I'm trying to think of? They were not, without possession, they had no sovereignty over their land. A lot of it was dictated. They lost a lot. A lot of the removal times, the people ended up, I think they purposely moved them while their crops were in full fledged. I'll tell you a story in a minute, but it usually was the troops coming in, burning their crops and forcing them out by gunpoint. And of course, one of the most historically significant, horrible thing was the Trail of Tears. In the bottom corner is a building, because the Relocation Act of 1956 moved a lot of people off reservations and into the cities like Chicago and Milwaukee and all, Minneapolis, further removing people from their agricultural and agrarian lives. Boarding schools. This is a picture of children working in the gardens at the school. But many of them, like the Hayward Indian Boarding School, they would go to basic classes in the morning, and then they would be farmed out or sent to area farms as laborers. They weren't learning how to run farms. They were just learning how to pick, how to grow, so it was all about that. Oh, the Dawes Act also dispossessed people of their land. And they also wanted them to use the allotment acts. That's the Dawes. I'm sorry, I had a brain fart. The Dawes Act put people on different allotments, and then they were expected to farm. Even though, like we all know, in the middle of the woods up here, there's no way you can, tear down a bunch of trees with the tools and the technology at that time and be able to be a significant farmer. But they were forced to, and part of that all was that it wasn't the crops that they normally did, but the government also dictated what they were going to grow. And also, I also threw commodities in there, because people were given enough to eat, but the government supplied food no matter how bad or how non-nutritious. They became where there was no need to grow your own or forage. Some may have supplemented themselves, but the commodities also further separated people from their historical background of farming and agriculture. The thing I came across in Chicago when I was working with youth and agriculture, and also up here, was now that I have a job and I can buy processed food, what makes you think I want to grow my own? The other thing that they would say is, I had to go down to my grandmother's during the summer and work on her farm. I'm not going to do that. I mean, we had to eat, they'll name off different crops, And why should I grow them? I can buy them. So, there's this big separation of food. But the sad thing about commodities and a lot of that kind of stuff, being able to buy processed food, is people have become assimilated to the European way of doing things, way of eating, I would say, and food systems, which is not sustainable. And of course, it does not have anything to do with sovereignty. But we had a feast a couple years ago, and I had different corns. I asked my daughter to just do an unofficial survey of what people were eating. And we had yellow corns, and we had white corn, and we had different kinds of corns there. But overwhelmingly, they wanted the nice yellow ears of corn and pretty much left everything else. It's like, well, that's because that's what they get in the store. If they would have tasted the other stuff, they would have probably tossed that yellow stuff aside and helped themselves to some of that Oneida white corn or some of the others that were presented. But we see that with people coming and, ugly food. People come and they want something that's perfect, like they see in the stores. And yet some of that ugly food, that it's called, is very nutritious, very tasty, and there's no argument that much more better for you. But anyways, bringing back growing food, learning and using wild plants, and bartering in its many aspects have generated new interest in food again. I'm going to just share a story here. Mohawk red bread corn. The story was given to me by a Mohawk woman, and she was talking about how in her ancestral village, as the troops, the armies, the government agents were pushing people from their land, they were burning crops and pushing them out when their fields were full of corn, they weren't allowed to take anything but a few possessions. And as they were leaving, one man grabbed a cob of Mohawk red bread corn and he hid it among himself. And this cob and all the Mohawk red bread corn that's grown are descendants of that one cob that was saved by that gentleman. And it tells you how important traditional and historical foods are important to people. I feel real privileged in being able to grow this. And this cob of corn, I was given a few of them, was the reason I started to turn my gaze from just growing corn to learning about the different indigenous corns out there. And this was the cob, this was the variety that changed my perspective about farming. It's not about growing the best, beautifulest yellow corn. Sometimes these cobs look like an old man's smile with a lot of cobs missing. Not cobs, kernels missing, but they're delicious and they meet the needs health-wise and all, whether it's corn or beans or squash or any of the other things. But this is the cob, this is the variety that started me on my journey and our journey here at the LCO farm. So, moving on. Let's talk about gardening. Yeah. That's just a cool picture. I had to share it with you. So instead of talking about everything we're growing, I'm just going to talk about a few things. The first, again, is the indigenous corns. There's thousands of varieties. And one of the important groups that I've become acquainted with and involved with is the indigenous seed keepers, more specifically the upper Midwest indigenous seed keepers. And we all get together and we share stories and share seeds. And most of the stories happen to be how to grow the different varieties. So we share. It's not, one corn does not just belong to one group of people, because a lot of the different varieties happen to do with um, cross-pollinating them to meet your needs. What's cool about indigenous foods, to me, is that they're very adaptable to where you're at. Now, the reason I'm bringing this kind of stuff up is, all of a sudden, when you're talking about a corn that used to grow here or there, wherever you are, at some point in history, it makes people real excited. They want to hear more about it. There was this lull, of people just, I'm happy just going to the store, or eating off commodities, or, oh yeah, I grow a tomato or two every year. But now we're talking about real food production and stuff that has been gone for a long time and is now returning. So maybe some of you, especially in the College of the Menominee, recognize the Bear Island corn. It's the corn of the Great Lakes tribes, including the LCO Ojibwe people. And it's real exciting. It was given to me by a seed keeper from the Oneida land. And we grew it, and it's been coming back, except for one time last year, but we'll talk about that in a second. But as you can see, it really likes being here because we grow these beautiful cobs. And the picture at the top actually is right now, they're all drying in a shed that we put a small heater in, and braided the corn. We learned to braid corn from the Oneida, and just shorter braids because the roof isn't, the ceiling isn't as high. We need to walk under them. But they will be dried and we will use them. I think there's a picture, the participation thing is blocking it, but in the bottom is right hand is Mohawk redbread corn. Mohawk redbread corn is a corn that was given to me by another seed keeper, and we grew it here, and it's about a 70-day corn, which when we only have a short growing season, less than 120 days here at LCO, whatever corn that we can get to grow in shorter periods of time is really great. I think that's why the Bear Island corn worked really well here, because it grew within our growing season. So as you can see, we dried it, and we have we can it up with in jars, and then make some available. And I've been passing some out to different people to try different ways of cooking them, whether they're hominy, whether they grind them up and use them for flour, make a soup out of them. But it's kind of our research. We're trying to see what, how well they adapt to the cooking of people, whether it's a traditional dish or making tortillas out of the flour, or as you see in the middle, we made corn relish out of the Bear Island corn just 2 weeks ago. So it's a very versatile, and the upper hand corner is the seed keepers learning about hand pollinating corn. This is right in the middle of Madison, Wisconsin. And so we learned to hand pollinate and keeping our crops from being cross-pollinated by other corns. Because why I think they're so colorful is they easily pollinate with other. Selective breeding, I would really like to see a Bear Island corn mixed with a Mohawk, not a Mohawk, the Mandan Brides, because it'd be really nice to have a corn of our own that really adapts to our climate here, especially with climate change. The seasons are so unpredictable, and both products have wonderful, or both corns varieties have wonderful flavors to them. So that's always good when they taste good. So it's still evolving. The corn is still sustaining, and it's still sustaining the people. And it's one of the main reasons people are so excited about having indigenous corn that used to grow here. I'm sorry, beans. I just was trying to figure out how many bean varieties there are. There's close to 40,000 varieties of beans. Like I say, it's no longer just a red bean or a black bean or a kidney bean. You have your Hidatsa Reds, you have your Calico, you have your Hidatsa Shield beans, you have Potawatomi Stripes, you got Seneca Stripes, you got Potawatomi Cranberry. Last year we grew 38 different varieties and only about 6 really did well. So part of our sustainability and our sovereignty is going to be based on those things that we are able to grow consistently and get a good yield out of. Beans are very versatile. Again, we save the best growers. In the corner on the left, those are a bean that was given to us by Seed Saver Exchange. They got it as a gift from somebody that said it was a bean that grew at LCO 100 years ago. And they wondered if we'd rematriate them. And of course I said yes. And this is the second year. And the first year we got 2 quarts beans out of them. And this time we got about a gallon of beans from what we planted. So we're real excited. We're now doing taste tests. It's really important to taste these things. But all these different things have to do with not only can they be grown, can they sustainable? Are these crops that have traditionally, historically been grown here? If not, what are some of the varieties that can be grown here? The squashes, as you can see, they go from seed all the way to, we made pumpkin masala, which is a spiced sauce that goes over rice and with chicken or whatever. So we're experimenting with the value-added products because sovereignty is being able to feed people, and the need is to eat throughout the year. So finding products that will allow people to eat long after the fresh pumpkins and stuff is gone. So we're trying to meet the needs, which is all about sovereignty. And so passing garden skills and knowledge on to people, these are different ways. Upper left-hand corner is at the American Indian Center down in Chicago. We did a 3 Sisters planting in traditional ways with them. Lali Aguilar did a thing on corn, and she presented some tools that are used in gardening, which is really good. Down in the left-hand corner is Dan Cornelius, and we too now have that same tool. In fact, we have 10 of them because we want to pass on traditional ways of doing agriculture. So this is a garden tool that was traditionally used. And down in the corner, Dan brings this tool everywhere he goes. And he actually gave us the template for us to be able to make it. We also bring a lot of kids in and have them do things, not only just traditionally, but with hand tools. You know, they saw that tractor in the corner and they're like, we're going to use heavy equipment. Guess what? They ended up with sticks and a few hand tools, and they were able to plant a lot. So, passing on the gardening to people, different generations, is part of food sovereignty because we got to pass it on. The little ones love it, just they're important. They remember what you talk about the different plants and seeds. And we continue to build up our seed collections so that we can make them more available in the community, as I hope you that are out there are able to or are working on that too, because it's not all about our little space on the farm. It's about getting it out into the community, and so that more people can grow, more people can feed themselves. And with the support of all the different entities, including the Tribal Governing Board, and of course the college board, and that it's really, and more importantly, the people and the elders. The elders have been coming, or we've been talking to elders for the last several years, and they're telling us stories that have to do with meeting the needs and aspirations of the people, and doing it traditionally, doing it in a respectful way. As you can see up above, Anthony is singing as with his hand drum as he plants. We always have prayer and stuff before we do some planting with groups to, again, that again is just to remind us that it's all a circle. One thing fits into the other all through. It's all integrated. It's not gardening now, hunting later, maple syrup there. No, it has to do all within one. I'm watching my time, Amber. I'm almost done, really.
Okay, because just a couple more minutes. And so
Right.
if you do have questions, I'd like everybody to just put them in the chat, and then we'll leave the last 10 minutes for the question and answer.
So foraging is becoming really, it's growing again, and people are more excited about it. And, these are just some of the stuff we've been doing. Blueberries, fiddlehead fern, taking young people out, hazelnuts. Here's some hazelnuts, an indigenous crop that is used. We also can put wild rice into the foraging, but it's more of a harvesting, but you still have to go, and guess what? Nature or the earth provides these foods to us to use. So there's a revitalization. We look at the blueberries, and of course you think about choke cherries and stuff. And guess what? You can have, we call it blue choke cherry jam, but it's a combination of choke cherries and blueberries. Just using the crops that the earth gives us. Mushrooms, of course, is a big thing. So all these give you an opportunity to have an enterprise or a market, or people making a living. Part of sustainability and sovereignty is not being dependent. And maybe you're not making $1 zillion, but maybe you could trade some of those mushrooms for the blueberries, for instance. So it is kind of economic also. Oops, wrong way. Oop. Come on, you could do it. How do you learn? What's the best way to learn how and what to forage safely? There's plenty of books out there, but you need to have somebody show you. And we use the 3 expert rule. It could be a book and 2 people, or a video from a bona fide person that can show you the way. Sean Sherman is in the corner, the sous chef, and they're learning how to forage, because then they'll go back and eat it and make meals out of it. And so foraging is a really time-honored way of doing it. Great Lakes Fish and Wildlife Commission is working on with some of the farms and some of the processing areas to be able to make more foraged food available to people in a safe way, so people can gain access to the berries and to the wild rice and mushrooms and different things. So they're working really hard so that it'll be able to be served in nursing homes, served in the schools, because there's a lot of regulations right now making them into organizations like that. But it's changing, and it's real exciting, because these are what gave people sustenance and also sovereignty, because if you can feed yourself, you're truly sovereign. So bartering, finishing up with bartering, it's getting the food onto the tables of the people. And it's happening all over. In the center is an old map of trade routes where the tribes would move among each others and trade. Paul Demain has done studies of the maple sugar, and it's found all over, including in the south, into Mexico and stuff. Just like that Oneida corn, I found that from somebody that asked us during that feast if we had any more, because that was the corn that grew in her place in Mexico, in her village. And she talked about the Oneida coming down and giving them corn, trading them corn. So been all over. And the Menominee Nation also is, with their staff, is reestablishing where the trade lines have been, trade routes. And we're looking through the mobile markets and stuff. For instance, up here, we're looking at Bad River, Lac du Flambeau, Red Cliff, St. Croix, Bartering. You grow strawberries well, and we grow corn well. How about if we trade, or let's make our product available to you? And then, of course, there's different ways to gain indigenous products also, whether it's the White Earth Land Recovery Project or other people making products available. So the trade is there. It's exciting. People thought it was just a trendy thing about 5 years ago, but it's really exploded because they're wanting food that they have eaten traditionally and historically. And it's exploding, and the interest, and people want to be involved. And as long as people are involved, from children to elders and everybody in between, sovereignty, it's meeting the needs of the people. Like we said, that sovereignty is all about. Just a few resources: Seed Seva, Chuchinkra, Zupi, Dream of Wild Health, us. And I just want to end with these children came out here. This is from the Wadukadading, and they helped us plant some old squash. And then they did a feast, or a spirit plate, tobacco and everything. And this is how they ended it. And I will end this way too. And then finally, my contact information. You can either get me through the college or through the farm here, and that's just different phone numbers and addresses. You're always welcome to come, and maybe we'll have opportunities to meet up, whether it's Zoom or phone calls or letters or whatever. But let's share, let's barter, and let's work towards not only indigenous sustainable food systems, but also working towards food sovereignty among our nations and our communities. Thank you. That's it.
Sue, thank you. There was a question in the chat from Charlene. With the rising cases of COVID-19 on our reservation, what kind of indoor gardening and structure would you suggest for multi-families? And is there any grants or programs that are available to assist?
Ooh, that's a lot of questions. Are you talking through the year, Charlene? You can just shake your head yes, or just during summertime? Year round? Okay. There was a huge interest in growing this year. If anybody's noticed, we did. We went to buy seeds. The exciting thing is we've gone from like $800 worth of buying seeds to less than $300 now, because we've been saving and keeping our seeds, finding those things that grow well. But there are some things we needed and we couldn't get them. And you go into garden shops and you couldn't get the seeds. I would encourage you to go to your different tribal farms, tribal gardens, and maybe there's gardeners that would share some seed with you. Indoors, heck, you can use any kind of container you would ever want, from a boot to, making a raised bed of some sort, or just some big pots. Some people heat up their garage or basement and do quite a big structure there. I know my basement or my downstairs has about 15 plants in there. None of them edible right now, but usually I'll have beans and different things growing in there. So you just find a spot, and most of the time it's, I don't know, unless you have a lot of space in that, how you would grow for a whole season or until the pandemic is over. But it's always good to have a few things. Know your plant. You know, you don't want to grow corn in a little pot, for instance. But does that answer your question? You could yes or no. Or we can always talk, right? And again, you can contact me anyway, and we can talk about some ideas, because you have a lot of good ideas too. Okay.
I think there's some grants out there right now that are with like the Native American Agriculture food, the group, that NAF group, that they have grants open and would be available, especially for ideas and stuff for COVID and how tribes are providing food to the people. So that's one avenue, Charlene, that you might want to check into.
Yeah,
Any other questions?
Go ahead.
Oh, we're just about out of time. I just wanted to remind everyone that I did put a link to the evaluation in the chat box. So we would really appreciate it if you could click on that link. It'll bring you to a Google form, and just take a couple minutes to give us some feedback on today's session. Please keep in mind that we are doing these sessions for the entire month of October. So please check back. Tomorrow's topic is an Indigenous perspective on Native Lives, or on Black Lives Matter, and just other things throughout the whole month. So please register for those, and you will receive emails from us, but the Zoom link and that will remain the same for all the sessions. So Sue, did you have a final comment?
Yeah, appreciate you being here. The thing that was interesting this year with the pandemic is at the beginning of summer, people were rushing to the farm and like, we need seeds, we need to grow over there, we need to, you know, put in gardens everywhere. And you know, I said, we'll do everything we can to help you do that, and we would. However, when they started doing a lot of the food giveaways, nobody came, nobody. You know, none of those people that were anxious. And again, that goes back to, oh, if it's given, but I wish they would have, and I wish people will come and ask, you know, how do we grow things? Because it's really important to learn how to do that. You know, again, like Charlene says, a plant or two of tomatoes or some squash or whatever, grown by, you know, on your own, it's really important, because once you know what to do with those seeds and how to take care of that seed and the plant and how to preserve, I mean, apples. So people get in a panic, but then, you know, it eases off. But we really encourage people, if they're panicking, any of you, if people are panicking, please tell them to learn how to do this. I mean, it's all about meeting our needs. And once we learn, then we can share that. We can barter with other people. You grow some tomatoes, you grow some onions, you grow some peppers, and hey, let's make salsa together. So it's a community thing. So anyways, thank you for being here. Nice to see you're here, Danielle.
All right, wonderful. Well, we are so appreciative that you guys attended today, Chimigwich, and that'll end our session for today. So, Gigawabamin.